What's up, everybody? Ben Rasa here for Awesemo.com, and we are back with more NFL offseason props, betting, everything in between. We've got a lot of things to talk about. We've been going through some team awards, some sleepers and whatnot, but the thing that we're going to hit on today is player props. Where are these guys going to be? Will they go over or under their yardage total, their touchdowns? There are a ton of props on the board across various sites. To do that, I am joined, as I always am, by Matt Gajewski, ready to break these all down. Matt, I know when we talk in the offseason, a lot of the, defensive player of the year, MVP, it's fun to talk about them, but to me, the biggest value, the biggest edges is found in player props.
I think so too. You're projecting a full game season for just one player rather than a full market of players. And one thing I really like to do in the season-long prop market is look at a lot of these unders. They're usually projected for full 17-game seasons, which don't account for injuries or, a team like the Chiefs, they might be looking at sitting their players later in the season. When that's not taken into account, I think there is an edge on the unders for a lot of these props.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm going to sound kind of counterintuitive because I'm not going to lie. I actually have a couple overs for this video, but in general, I do look to some of the unders, as you mentioned. I think in the public likes to go over with most of their bets. People want to cheer for points. I'm a sicko. I like unders. I like, 6-4 games, all safeties, just no points whatsoever. But we're not going to really talk about that today. I'm going to have you kick things off. I've been starting videos, but where do you see yourself going to start the player props?
Yeah, and when you look at overs, I'm looking for changing situations, maybe buy lows for players coming off injuries. And that's where I want to start with Odell Beckham for the Cleveland Browns. His yardage prop is listed at 925.5 yards. You're not laying pretty bad juice on this. It's just 115 or around there, depending on the books. And you look at Odell Beckham's career, he's basically been over 1,000 receiving yards in every single year he's been healthy. You look at his market share stats with Cleveland, he's easily their leader in not only targets, he had a 22% target share when healthy, but air yards as well. He was up around 33%. This Cleveland Browns team doesn't throw the ball at the highest rate in the NFL, but they are a team that's projected for 10.5 wins. So we're expecting them to move the ball offensively. So I like Odell Beckham as a buy low. And these are the situations I'm looking for when taking overs in the season-long prop market.
Listen, I have no problem. I'm high, as scary as it is to say, I'm very high on the Browns in general. I do think they have got all the pieces this year. No real excuses. I'm going to stick in the AFC North, and I'm going to a guy that if you've watched me in the DFS videos over the years, you know this is one of my favorite players in the league, Joe Mixon. Just a guy that can't seem to stay healthy. But as you mentioned, when you do look for overs, maybe coming off injuries, maybe buy low spots, that's exactly what we have here for his rushing yardage prop. Over 995.5 yards, minus 130, minus 125 I saw out there. In that range, I'm pretty comfortable with anything in there. I think this is a spot. We've seen it a couple years. When he is healthy, if he plays, 14.
Community build around them, which I don't care about. I'm not trying to make new friends in the NFT community, but these ones are pretty sick. I'll send them to you again if you don't know what I'm talking about.
No, I'll put it on the list.
I'll surely lose money. Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome. It is the week one, way too early look at Fanduel NFL DFS salaries. And hopefully everyone's here for it because I couldn't be more excited. I'm Dave Loughran on the Twitters at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. Hit me up. And while you do, say hi to my co-host, Ben Rasa at JazzRazDFS. Ben, we broke all this down last week. We went like 90 minutes. I don't think we need to do that again, but I think the overall level of excitement last Monday, which you can check out right here on the channel where we talked everything DraftKings week 1 salary, I think the level of excitement was just too high to stop doing it.
Oh, no doubt. We could do this, and maybe we will do this leading up week after week till kickoff, because the excitement is there. We could have done another 2 hours just looking at stacks, looking at lineup construction, and that's what we're going to do here for FanDuel, which we get a new batch of salaries, a new format in terms of PPR, a lot to break down today.
Am I crazy to think that for the first time in God knows how long, FanDuel salaries are actually sharper than DraftKings?
You know, I feel like early in the year, FanDuel has a more of a fighting chance in that regard. Sometimes later in the year, they just have some mind-boggling things. But I looked at the pricing, of course, before the show today, and I liked what I saw. There's some opportunities to take advantage of, but it's not as egregious in terms of, oh my God, we have funnel positions and these guys are going to be mega chalk.
Yeah, and I think another spot that we touched on with DraftKings that is somewhat similar when it comes to FanDuel is it does feel like some of these rookies might be a little bit underpriced. And I say that not because all of them are going to be good. That never happens. You know, we get hyped on every rookie running back coming into the league, most rookie wide receivers, even some rookie tight ends. And more times than not, only a select few of them hit or even DFS viable from week to week. But it does feel like when you're this far out from the start of the regular season, you still have training camp, you still have 3 preseason games, that some of these rookies at their price points right now, if you had said, you know what, scrap that, we're going to reprice, not that they would, we're going to reprice everybody 5 days before the season starts, that some of these rookies would be a whole lot more expensive than they currently are.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And you see that across, you know, here at Awesemo, we're doing everything in terms of betting fantasy football and DFS. You see the ADP on some of these guys rising. You see the player props up there with some established players already. And that's something that I think you can use to gauge week 1. Now, of course, it's matchup dependent and there's other things at play, but I definitely think, you know, Najee Harris comes to mind. A lot of players come to mind. As we get closer to week 1 kickoff, they're going to feel more and more underpriced in a lot of situations.
Leaking Snatch says, what's up? I mean, what a name. Lee.
And he's rocking the logo. We appreciate all of that.
Rocking the Awesemo logo. I love it. What's up to all of you guys? Thanks for being with us. We can't do it without you, right? I mean, we're not going to stream to nobody. So you guys make it a whole lot more fun. If you have any comments, definitely throw them into chat. If you're watching this after the fact, throw them down below. Let us know what you think, some of the best, worst salaries, some of our opinions, what you think of the lineup that we build later in the show. And if you haven't done so yet, hammer that thumbs up button. It helps us greatly. We're trying to make a huge push again for NFL this year. Last year, Ben was wildly successful every single week of the season. I mean, we had shows for every showdown slate, for every Saturday slate, every Christmas day, the Christmas Day slate. I mean, you name it. I don't think anyone had more DFS content than us. So why not start early, hit that subscribe, and hit that thumbs up as well.
Yeah. And this year, I just want to say quickly, because I'm always biased, we're going to have that and college football. Every college football slate, we have you covered. Me and Matt have been doing all the podcasts on betting you, VODs. And when the season starts, there is nobody better than him in breaking down these teams.
Yep. Awesemo Odds channel and the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. Please give them a look. I don't say this because we need help. I say it because I think you're going to love them. If you're getting ready, you're playing on Underdog or you're playing Yahoo leagues, whether it's a home league, high stakes league, FFPC, whatever it is, we got you covered on all fronts at the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel, pumping out some amazing content. That's where I've been spending most of my time. I know a lot of you guys have been over there, but if you've yet to check it out yet, head over there, and the Awesemo Odds channel, which is really going to get going heavy as we get closer to the start of the season and start breaking everything down every single week. So the Awesemo Network, hang with us. It's going to be an amazing season. All right, Ben, let's dive straight into this one then. Before we do the actual pricing, though, it's only reasonable that we talk about how FanDuel pricing differs from DraftKings, because I think a lot of people will build a lineup on DraftKings and then not everybody, and we got some astute viewers for sure, but a lot of people will go over to FanDuel and not consider some of the scoring changes or differences. And while they may not be extremely significant, like FanDuel no longer has a kicker, they finally did away with that. The whole half-point PPR is significant enough when you're rostering maybe pass-heavy running backs that don't really do much at all in the run game. Maybe a J.D. McKissick last year would be a perfect example of someone who's way better on DraftKings than FanDuel.
it makes a massive difference, especially in the NFL now where guys are throwing more and more. You can rack up so many PPR catches, and you're only going to get half points for that on FanDuel. So that bonuses are something that we have to keep in mind with more and more points being put on the board by these players, dual threats, things like that. So it is different. I know it seems the same, but FanDuel and DraftKings are two totally different situations. There is crossover, but at the same time, you need to make sure you're building optimally for the site that you're playing on.
So outside of the half point PPR, is there anything that stands out? I mean, both of them are 4-point passing touchdown leagues, obviously 6-point rushing, receiving touchdowns, all of that stuff. Is there anything else from a roster construction standpoint, from a scoring standpoint, that is worth pointing out before we get into these guys and why we think some of them differ from site to site?
No, I think it's just thinking about the concept of when you stack up a team, you have to kind of think, how do they get there? And sometimes on DraftKings, you can say they get there by volume in terms of receptions. Here, you're a little more scoring dependent. You need the yards. So some guys that are, the classic three receptions for $120, that's going to play a lot better on FanDuel than it is over on DraftKings. So I think you want to be cognizant of that and just build to the teams. I don't want to overhaul my process by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that you need to take that in mind because some players are naturally better at half point PPR.
Sure. And I think there's one other thing to consider too. DraftKings has bonuses.
Yeah, bonuses.
Right? Yep. So you've got your receiving bonus. Did you mention that? I'm sorry. Have you mentioned that?
I did, but I think it's worth delving into for sure.
Okay. Yeah. My fault. Sometimes I read chat and I just drift off, but the bonuses in one sense, it's like, yeah, but don't I want to play the guys that are going to get the most yards anyway, right? Like, don't I want the guys that are going to throw for the most yards, catch the most yards, run for the most yards? Of course you do. But those bonuses are pretty significant, especially when you're dealing with a guy that can rack up 100 and 100, or not 100 in the same day, even though it's possible, but can give you 100 on the ground or through the air. And also the fact that guys that are a little bit more touchdown dependent, and you don't have to worry about those bonuses on a place like FanDuel, is where it differs a little bit than DraftKings. It's not something that I factor in as much as half point PPR because, if a guy goes for 180 through the air or on the ground, you're going to want that player anyway.
Yeah, sometimes it takes care of itself, but there are certain players that have additional upside. When we talk, even quarterbacks now, guys like Lamar can get that 100-yard bonus, and certainly the 300-yard bonus for a lot of guys who are statues in the pocket is one way that they can mitigate their lack of rushing upside. So on FanDuel, you don't have those outs. You just have to build a little differently. Again, the best players, if you really like a guy and he's going to have a big week, he'll be good in standard half point or full point PPR. It just depends, on the small edges that makes the difference.
One of the spots that jumped out to me right away, and this might be a spot where you and I just don't even agree out of the gate, which would be kind of fun. I'm currently making a video that'll be published tomorrow on the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. It's going to be a good one. And one of the spots in that video is me making an argument that in half point PPR or in full point PPR, you could draft Alvin Kamara second behind Christian McCaffrey. Okay. And ahead of Dalvin Cook and definitely ahead of Derrick Henry in half point or full point PPR. You don't have to agree with that, but just wait for my argument. I'll hit you with that tomorrow. But the question I have for you really is, should Kamara be almost $2,000 less expensive than Christian McCaffrey? I get that the matchup for McCaffrey is spectacular, but with no Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara was not only the RB1 in the games that Michael Thomas missed last year, but he was the RB1 by 63 fantasy points. Okay. That's PPR. I think it would have been like 45 in standard leagues. And if you were to say, yeah, but what about the fact that he had that 6 touchdown game? Remember that one on Christmas? I know you did.
I remember.
Yeah. You're like, well, what about that? It skews the numbers, right? Not really. Every one of those weeks outside of one, he was top 10 and he was top 3 in 6 of those 8 weeks. So like he's got the highest floor outside of McCaffrey, I think, of anybody at his position, and one of the highest ceilings as well. What happens if McCaffrey's super high owned and Alvin Kamara, because of a relatively tough matchup, is way less owned than him or Henry and Dalvin Cook, and especially McCaffrey at a lower price point?
It's interesting because, we just spent some time talking about this. I do think, like everything, there's a pendulum, and sometimes you get it in your head like, oh, half point PPR, I can't roster these guys that are pass catchers out of the backfield. That's not true at all. It's not ideal for a guy like Kamara, but he's still so good. He can obviously be an asset. And I think we do see that here They're at home in the dome, total of 50. Everything, I have no problem. I'm not going to be as high on Kamara as you are, I have a feeling. But I get the argument. The guy that I kind of want to ask you, because one of the few things that have changed from the video we did from last week, Loughy, is let's see what happens with Justin Jefferson. Now, if he is out, does that impact what you think about with someone like Dalvin Cook?
Just real quick, Diablo says Kamara is meh this season. Bro, you're insane. He led all running backs in fantasy points in half-point PPR, not just full-point PPR last year. He had 21 touchdowns. I won't get into all of it. Okay. Kelly says, was that with or without Breeze? Doesn't matter. Some of them were with Breeze. Some of them were without Breeze. It doesn't matter. Breeze stunk last year. So
yeah, with them is more impressive.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
That's not a helpful at all.
So you're saying if Jefferson is out,
potentially, I mean, obviously, if Jefferson is out, Thielen, of course, is going to be a popular name, and we'll get to him. But Dalvin Cook is an absolute monster. He's going to be healthy. Cincinnati's run defense, I mean, that's I think an exploitable situation. I wouldn't be stunned to see him get a massive workload right out of the gate.
Okay, so I would say just out of the gate, to answer your question, and I'll tell you what I think of Jefferson. Thielen had 15 touchdowns last year that nobody talks about, right? Might have been 14, but he had a ton. I think Irv Smith is kind of that flavor of the month as well. I would assume he'll be popular. And Dalvin Cook is just going to be, there's no way you can ignore Dalvin Cook there. No chance at all, especially against Cincinnati. I don't think there's any chance Jefferson misses week 1, though.
That's fair.
I'm not a doctor, right? I'm not you, Ben. I don't have the stethoscope on the wall, right?
But you did send it to me, so you get half of that point.
Right. But I did sprain my AC joint twice when I was younger. And I remember it kind of hurting. And I'm in no peak physical condition like a Justin Jefferson is, and he's super young. And I was back to being completely fine in like a couple of weeks. I remember they gave me a sling and I didn't even wear it after a day. So anecdotal, maybe. Do I think that Jefferson misses? But I don't think it's crazy to say the guy's not going to miss 5+ weeks, into week 1. It just, they're labeling him day to day,
Yeah. We're not, kickoff is not this Sunday. That would be a little different. We've got a lot of time here. So I'm with you. I do think, though, Dalvin Cook is he's poised every time, the healthier he can stay, and early in the year, if he's fresh, that guy is as good as anybody. I'm a huge Dalvin Cook backer in all formats.
Last thing I'll say, just on this, Diablo's Winston's even worse turnover machine, and the Saints offense is going to be trash. Turnovers are good for fantasy. So
really good.
Go ahead.
No, the formula, Jameis throwing like multiple pick sixes is a bump to all your offensive players. That would be good.
And I actually don't think that'll even be the case if you're worried about that. I don't think that'll be the case anyway. I think Jameis Winston will be. I think McVay will kind of curtail some of those bad tendencies to the point where Winston is not like he was in 2019, where Evans and Godwin and everyone just popped off. But no, if you're worried about Winston at the helm, you should be thrilled that Winston gets to start. The worry should be that Taysom Hill is not the guy in there. That's where I'm at, Ben. So
I'm with you.
We'll see. But I just think it's an interesting spot at the top of the running back position, because you got all of those guys up there, and all of them are capable of putting up massive games. I mean, McCaffrey against the Jets, and even if Jefferson plays, you've got Dalvin Cook against Cincinnati. I think you and I last week during the DraftKings show built a lineup that, instead of going with what we know is going to be a popular Bengals stack, we went Mixon and ran it back with Dalvin Cook, which was kind of an interesting way to build there.
That's going to be a good game. A lot of exposure, particularly as you mentioned with Burrow and the receivers, but there's a lot of weapons, and someone like Irv Smith can actually impact what's going on with these other people, because Irv Smith is kind of that flavor of the month. And I think he's got a lot of talent too. I'm kind of sucked into the hype, but there's no doubt that Minnesota's got some other guys. It's just an interesting top of the board, because then you've got like Saquon, who's, no one's talking about him, and he's just kind of sitting there, and then gets, we start to drop down into that mid-range pricing.
See, this is where I think it gets really interesting. Now, it's It's difficult too if you're a predominantly DraftKings player, and generally speaking, I am. I mean, I prefer DraftKings for the most part over FanDuel, but so sometimes you'll look at one and be like, man, 7,400 seems kind of expensive, but then in context, it really isn't. And you've got guys like Aaron Jones against New Orleans in week 1 at 7,400 with Rodgers expected to play. Jones shot up my rankings, obviously. And then you have Joe Mixon at 72 against Minnesota. That Minnesota defense, make no mistakes about it, this was not a very good defense last year at all. Is it possible that we'll see some improvement? Yeah, it's certainly possible, but they were bottom 5 in run grade according to PFF, or really anywhere you look, they were pretty bad. What do you make of the mid-range here?
Yeah, it's tricky. Obviously, you're not going to have guys that check every box, but that's to be expected. Some of these guys are going to get lost. And I'm going to point to Mixon again. I know we already talked about him, but first of all, Cincinnati in this game is a 3-point home dog. So they're certainly live to stay in the game, to win the game. Total of 48. I like all that. The line literally can't be worse. So if he can get any not protection because he's not Burrow, but any holes that open up, he should be poised for that. I don't think half-point PPR hurts him. Certainly Aaron Jones makes sense. And then you've got a guy, Gibson to me is a much tougher evaluation because, again, that's someone with a Washington team that certainly people are talking about them being able to repeat in your division, and I get it. He showed a lot of promise there. He's not a super pass catcher. He can catch a little, but Gibson sees poised, even though I am high on the Chargers defense overall.
Are there any spots at running back that just stand out to you as egregious or even just like head scratching to an extent? Because I have a couple of them that I think are pretty interesting. And then I have a few that are cheap that people might load up on, which offers really great pivot opportunities elsewhere on the same team or maybe in the same pricing tier.
I'm interested to see what people do with Travis Etienne, just in Jacksonville in general. You know, we don't have answers for what they're going to be, what Lawrence is going to be, what the backfield is going to be. That's someone as a rookie I think people are very interested in. Right above them, you've got Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams and the whole situation with Denver. I think these are the type of situations in terms of Robinson and Etienne, Melvin Gordon and the other backs in Denver that I want to see how they shake out. And I want to see, more importantly, how the public is viewing them, because there could be opportunities there.
One of the spots that jumps out to me straight away, and I talked about Trey Sermon last week, we both did, is the fact that Trey Sermon is $5,200. Okay. San Francisco moved up in the 3rd round to grab it. He's going to be used. There's no doubt Shanahan's going to use him. And I know some people have some disagreements here with me, but if Sermon, and I think it's possible, especially against Detroit, ends up being a chalky value back, I will very likely go to a lot of Raheem Mostert. He's 6,100. I don't think he's egregiously overpriced at all. I mean, he's the same price as, say, Kareem Hunt, who's got a matchup against Kansas City where they could be forced to throw a lot. And the thing with Hunt is you look at it, you're like, oh, man, big time pass catching back. Kind of. I mean, it's not like he was getting a ton of targets last year. Raheem Mostert, though, is a good talent. He's never averaged less than 5 yards per attempt in a season. And I was looking at some stats the other day on NFL. What's the NFL one? The something stats. What is it? Do you know what I'm talking about? The NFL. It's like those advanced stats where they have all the crazy speed metrics and stuff.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
I do know, because they show the little graphic on Twitter. Like on Sundays, I always see like those little dots running. Next gen stats. Thank you. That.
Do you know the 2 longest touchdowns last season? And he only played like 8 games or so. Not the 2 longest, but 2 of the longest. The 2 touchdowns where someone hit the highest speed was Raheem Mostert. I think he hit like 24 miles per hour or something.
That's fast.
I mean, that could be wrong, but it was insane.
Sounds fast.
He's super, super fast. He's talented. When he needs to catch passes, he can. And we know that Shanahan wants to run the ball a ton. I'll do you one better. Against the Detroit Lions, who lost Matthew Stafford and almost all of their pass catchers and replaced them with a bunch of unknowns. Well, Amon-Ra St. Brown, we know that Perriman can step up when he needs to, but like Tyrell Williams, I don't know. These guys, how much faith do you really have in them? Hawkinson should be good, but either way, you would really expect a healthy San Francisco team to blow their doors off and run the ball a ton in week 1. If Trey Sermon ends up being popular, and I have a sneaky suspicion that he will, I like Raheem Mostert a lot. And everyone says I hear all these rumors now. Yeah, but Mostert has a knee brace on. He came out and refuted that. He said he's been practicing with a knee brace for forever. It's precautionary. He's totally fine. If that's the case, that to me could be a really solid pivot in the same game where I expect the same team to score a ton of points.
I'll be honest. Now that's something I'm going to have to keep an eye on, because I'm a little surprised to hear you say that Trey Sermon could be potentially as popular, and San Francisco's 7.5 point road favorites here. They could run it down their throat. I'm not saying that this is a guy I would want to target, but don't forget Wayne Gallman is also there. This is a team that just likes to get a lot of backs in the mix. I don't think it'll be Elijah Mitchell time just yet. He was another running back that was drafted. I love him as a pass catcher and a burner. Don't think he's going to see many carries, if any, but I have no problem trying to gauge that Mostert could take the lion's share here. It's always been a volume thing with these guys. There's going to be enough to go around, but if he's, say, a fraction of the ownership or even similar, I would lean Mostert as well. I'm just surprised to hear you say that the public is as high on Sermon as they is. That is something I didn't see coming.
I could be wrong, but just the general sentiment that I've seen would suggest that. And if you look at like underdog fantasy, best ball leagues, right? It's the closest thing we have to any DFS, any ability to quantify DFS values right now, right? Because it's a lot of sharp people. And there's no waiver moves or anything like that. You're playing for upside and all of that good stuff. So right now, it's obviously, I use that promo code Awesemo. If you sign up, it's amazing. It'll get you $25 into your account when you sign up and deposit using the promo code Awesemo. We've been doing a ton of underdog stuff here on the channel and over at the Fantasy Football channel. Trey Sermon has an ADP of 75 right now, and Raheem Mostert is at 90, Ben. So he's going like over a round after him right now on underdog.
Do you care who is under center for them in terms of Lance or Jimmy G?
Absolutely. Yeah. Jimmy G can take off when he needs to, but he's not what you would call a mobile quarterback. So I think you would definitely want Jimmy Garoppolo under center, but at the same time, could I make an argument that Trey Lance will open up more running lanes for guys like Raheem Mostert who are super quick and can hit those holes and be gone? Yeah, sure. I just looked it up on Next Gen last year. The two fastest touchdown runs, Mostert, 23.09 miles per hour, 80-yard rushing touchdown, 22.73 in week 1, 76-yard reception touchdown. This is in week 1 and 2. So when this guy's healthy, he's sick.
Yeah, I mean, what's there to say? That tells the story right there. And in terms of the quarterbacks, I don't think it's that big a deal. Jimmy G's lower variance. We know what we're going to get. He's not going to be running around. But I do think Lance is also more prone to be a little more, a conservative game plan and lean on the running backs as over a touchdown favorite on the road. It's hard to see the Niners not having rushing volume against a Detroit team that I don't expect much of anything this year. What
about guys like Michael Carter? You've got him now at 5,300. It seems like him and Tevin Coleman are going to split reps. There are some cheap rookies, again, Javonte Williams, but it also appears that Melvin Gordon is getting a lot of those first team opportunities. I mean, are there any cheap running backs that stand out to you that you think could be chalky in week 1?
No, I think it's a situation, even though I love doing the show and we have plenty to talk about, some of this is going to take care of itself because some of these battles are going to be won by a certain guy. Injuries are going to happen that are going to funnel it. So when I look at the pricing and I'm doing my initial work here, I'm more cognizant of like, okay, who are the bigger names? And then who are the guys I need to keep an eye on in terms of these battles? And to me, I'm just going to circle back to the Jacksonville battle and the Broncos. Those are two teams I want to see how it shakes out a little bit, because ultimately I think one of those guys could emerge as chalk if, the carries and the volume break their way.
I'll throw one more running back out there and then we can talk receivers here. Just looking at the guys that stand out most to us. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You guys know how high I am on Edwards-Helaire this season. They've bolstered the offensive line. It should help those troubles that we saw at the goal line last year. And honestly, that stuff can be kind of volatile. There's a lot of variance when it comes to touchdowns anyway. Not for everybody, of course, but for a rookie. The first 6 weeks of the season before Le'Veon Bell came in, he was getting 20+ looks every single game. I just think Clyde Edwards-Helaire has an insane amount of upside. And if you're pricing him where he is, I don't think that he should be that cheap. Is it not a great matchup against Cleveland? No, but Kansas City is just such a stellar offense that these are the type of players, and I want you to touch on this too, because, you've won a lot of money doing this in the past, where you target good players that might not be in the greatest matchups if they're getting no ownership, because sometimes you'll see a good running back in a good spot. And of course, that's more likely to hit than any other position when they're in a good matchup. I get that. But there are some good running backs out there just on teams that are so good that the opportunities might be there anyway. And sometimes they go entirely overlooked, especially on a big slate like this.
So that's something I don't think's talked about enough sometimes, where you get a team that's so bad. Take the Jets when they couldn't score, and everyone's looking for value there. And when you step back and think about it, you are trying to peg the maybe one touchdown they're going to have that week to your guy. You take a team like the Chiefs, you may not get it right, but there might be 5-6 touchdowns up for grabs for your guy to have opportunities. Now, Mahomes, and they have so many ways to score, but it's much easier in some ways to actually do that. And it's counterintuitive in some regards because, the matchup's not great. There's so many other priorities and mouths to feed. But at the same time, at least with a team like Kansas City, you're going to get 4 or 5 shots at it almost every week. Whereas some of the bad teams, they might only have 1 or 2 touchdowns at most a week.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Like, good teams, even in a tough matchup, are still going to get their chances. There's no doubt about that, especially a team like the Chiefs. And when we talk about wide receivers here, and then we're going to do our team stacks. It's always the most fun of these shows, breaking down what kind of team stacks we can do, and then trying to put these into a lineup, maybe a run back, maybe just a full out game stack. We can try something there. Like Davante Adams, super expensive. Davante Adams, expensive. Tyreek Hill is up there in price. Hopkins is up there, and all of them justifiably. And I think Fanduel did it right. I think Fanduel did it right by pricing Calvin Ridley as one of the highest priced running backs. There's no reason he should, well, I shouldn't say that. There's no reason he shouldn't be, from a DFS standpoint, in the same neighborhood as all of these preeminent players like Adams, Hill, and Hopkins, just given the target share that we expect them to see. So him, and then Justin Jefferson, all of these guys priced above 8K. Do you find this as a spot where you're like, you know what, I got to get myself a decent amount of this tier? Or is it such a deep position that maybe we can live a little bit more in the mid-range, lower mid-range as well, and then load up on expensive running backs? And I know it's not a cut and dry, I get that, but initial thoughts.
Yeah, initial thoughts is that with running back, I see more of a drop-off. I really like those guys up top. I think the volume is going to be there. And more in the NFL, you're getting a lot of teams with, split carries and just so many guys. Wide receiver, there's a ton. I mean, ideally, would I like to go get Calvin Ridley or Tyreek Hill? Of course. There's a lot of guys, though, in the 6K range, in the 5K range, that I think are going to have massive target share, ample opportunities. And again, over on FanDuel, one long play, one long touchdown, you don't need the volume per se, because that, the PPR is mitigated with the 0.5.
Someone asked Jamar Chase or Mecole Hardman. Well, for me, I understand the enthusiasm around guys like Mecole Hardman because Sammy Watkins is no longer in Kansas City. But is it possible, Ben? Is it possible that maybe, just maybe, we're overvaluing the departure of Sammy Watkins a little bit when you've got guys like Byron Pringle that have actually been involved in the offense when players have been out? And I'm not saying go Byron Pringle instead, but is it possible that maybe we're a little bit too high on Mecole Hardman, or do you think maybe he's right where he should be in terms of the enthusiasm around him going into the year without Watkins?
Yeah, I'm a little hesitant just because, I just talked about the Chiefs. They have so many chances to score. The problem with that is they get about 1 million guys who they can plug in and make work, whether it's Pringle or Robinson or whoever. They're so innovative. I worry a little about that. I don't think it's secure. The other thing, speaking to that specific question, Jamar Chase, I think he's very, very good. I didn't like the draft pick. I was adamant about that, but not because of him. I think he's going to be dominant. People forget at LSU, him and Jefferson were there together. Jamar Chase was the alpha. Doesn't mean he's going to be better than Justin Jefferson. I want to be clear about that, but Jamar Chase has everything that you can need. I think he's poised in a team that could be trailing a lot, or, great receiving core to have a big, big year. So I would go with Chase over Hardman.
And, while we are talking about a team that has a lot of mouths to feed, because, you hear that a lot, it can't be overstated. The departure of AJ Green can't be overstated. the obvious, anyone that's like hasn't really done a lot of research this year, your obvious answer is going to be like, yeah, well, AJ Green sucked last year. Yeah, but he still was one of 3 guys to have 100+ targets. And that was with Joe Burrow only playing almost 10 weeks. So T. Higgins, over 100 targets. Tyler Boyd was on pace for 144 targets with Burrow on the field. And AJ Green went over 100 targets as well. So you're still you're voiding 100 targets there to AJ Green. Now, yeah, sure. Joe Mixon's coming back. He missed 10 games last year. But is it possible, Ben, that Jamar Chase is just so good and so NFL ready that he immediately slots in as the wide receiver 1A, I want to say, because I still think after what we saw from Higgins and the dynamic that he had with Burrow last year, that I don't think there's any way early on that Jamar Chase just pulls away with like a 30% target share. But on a high passing offense, with a defense that has shown some improvement, it looks like in camp they're getting better, but still you can't patch all of those leaks in one offseason. They're still going to have to throw a ton.
Oh, there's no doubt. And Jamar Chase is going to have some monster weeks. I actually think he's a better Fanduel player because he's extremely explosive. He can get downfield. He can red zone threat. No doubt about it. I like everything I see from him. I think that Cincinnati all year is going to be a very stackable team. It's also going to help Mixon because people are going to want to go through the air, as we talked about in that last video. But looking at this week 1 slate, and Chad just brought it up, they're right. They're in my mind. Chanult is right there as well. A couple $100 more than Chase. He draws the Texans, which is, as good as you're going to get. I don't know what we get from Jacksonville, but I'm certainly buying on Libiscus Chanult. Bought on him last year. That's not stopping anytime soon.
I can't get there.
What?
I know you wouldn't be happy
disturbing.
To hear that. I can't. I'm there on his talent. I don't know if I'm there on his production yet. Let me explain. And hopefully you can. I'm willing to have you change my mind, right? I'll sit in front of a booth that says change my mind, right? We'll go onto a college campus and we'll have people throw shit at us while we do this. How's that sound?
Sounds like my Friday night. Go ahead. I want to hear this.
You don't get the reference? Never mind.
So you may have to delve into that too. I see that on Twitter.
Yeah. Steven Crowder, the guy that, never mind. Go look. It's a change my mind and just people get riled up and pissed off and, what begins as a conversation devolves into madness most times. But anyway, here's what I want to say. With Chanult, I liked him a lot more before I knew that Marvin Jones was in Jacksonville. And I get that a lot. You might be like, well, yeah, but Marvin Jones, why are we worried about Marvin Jones? Well, Marvin Jones is still decent. He was basically 1,000-yard, 9-touchdown receiver last season, right? And I think that's pretty good. He's never been a clear number one. I know several years back, he had that 1,100-yard season, but he's always been actually a pretty good receiver and a legitimate red zone target. He has 9+ touchdowns in 3 of his last 4 seasons. He had 5 in the only season he didn't have 9+, and he only played 9 games. So Marvin Jones, legit red zone threat. DJ Shark as well. Then you have Chanult. But what happens if ETN begins lining up as a receiver, as Urban Meyer has talked about doing? I think Chanult can blow up in any given week, but I think his performances are going to be very unpredictable and erratic from week to week. That's where I'm at.
I totally get that. I'm banking that he's so good that it's going to be undeniable. He's just going to overtake Shark and Marvin Jones enough where the production will steady. That's what I'm banking on, because I get what you're saying. It's an unpredictable offense across the board. We also don't know. I know everybody, and I get why. Trevor Lawrence has been the number 1 pick for like 3 years. We knew this was going to happen. It's not a given that he's going to be effective. I think he's going to be like everyone else, but maybe they struggle and maybe none of these pass catchers. There's a lot of downside in that regard. I think, though, if Chanult stays healthy, that's my biggest priority with him. The talent is just going to overtake these guys. Yeah, they have some other weapons, but ultimately he will be their best weapon on the outside.
Chronic says Shark finger surgery today. Yeah, but from everything I've seen, he's expected back in week 1. It's worth monitoring for sure. If DJ Shark were to miss week 1, then Chanult becomes really, really appealing to me. There's no doubt. You take one of those players out the field, but you made a good point. It's not just about the fact that they've got a lot of bodies. And if you guys have questions, any salaries you want us to hit on, throw them in chat. We'll do that. It's not just about that. But yeah, is Lawrence going to be good? Eventually, I think in his career, we would expect him to be a good quarterback. But we're just kind of going into this assuming that, hey, Trevor Lawrence is already good. What do you think? You're a big college guy.
I mean, it's hard to knock why he wouldn't be good. He can do everything. He can move. He can make all the throws. He's a winner. Everything checks out, but you don't know. I'm more not sold on.
That's a great comment.
Yeah. Get the Jerry Rice slant. No one cares about Jerry Rice. We're talking about Libiscus Chanult. This is top end talent here with Jacksonville. I just really think that this is the type of guy, and you're right. Maybe in a best ball format, he's more suited because he's gonna have some big weeks and maybe some down weeks but you got to live with that in DFS. That's some of the upside, depending on what the ownership does. I like the spot. I'm not deterred by Marvin Jones going there. I think honestly, it keeps them a little more honest. I don't want it to be a situation where teams are saying we have to take away Chanult and we don't have to worry about anything else.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think once you get into the mid-range too, like, we're talking about some of those same plays, that same range. Cortland Sutton has made some insane catches. Yeah. Have you seen some of that in camp?
I mean, you know how high I was on the Broncos before their entire team was decimated by injuries last year.
Dude,
that guy is a problem.
I went back and watched a lot of 2019 game highlights and also just snaps. And he was dominant. Dominant.
Denver, low key, they got some dudes. Like, I know Jerry Jeudy didn't stand out. I'm still high on him. I like Fant at tight end. I like Melvin Gordon. They may or may not have a quarterback. And of course, without that, it's kind of the head of the snake. But the weapons for Denver, I don't think as one-offs could be big time DFS plays in a lot of weeks.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. And I think Jerry Jeudy stood out because he had more drops than anybody not named Deontay Johnson last year, but he's an amazing route runner and creates a ton of separation. So, I mean, imagine if he stops dropping passes, and that's a catchable ailment, or a fixable ailment. You know what I mean?
I also think that certain guys in general, like Jerry Jeudy, was thrust into a role that he wouldn't have been in without Sutton. There was a lot of pressure on him last year as kind of the last man standing. I think they greatly benefit from more balance in that pass catching. But I got to ask you, when you asked like absurd people that stood out price wise, did Russell Gage not stand out to you at 57?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. Because you're going to see, so, okay. If you look at the Eagles defense right now, they're not necessarily good. Okay. But I do know one thing, that you're going to see a lot of Darius Slay on Calvin Ridley, right? And then the linebacking core, which we can talk about this, is not good for the Eagles. Depending on whether or not Pitts is the real deal early on, he could just cut them up. But I think Ridley still gets over on Darius Slay. They need to bring some help. They couldn't do that last year, and bigger, more physical receivers dominated him. Ridley's not that big. But still, he's really, really good. If Darius Slay is on Ridley and you've got Russell Gage, who actually was not bad last year at all, as somebody that's getting, your second and third cornerback options, and they're not very good. If you go and look at what Philadelphia is working with, I think it can be solid. And I also think this could end up being a shootout too.
No doubt, in the dome at home. And actually, I do want to give a quick. Me and Matt Gajewski, we did our favorite player props over on the Awesemo Odds channel. If you have not gone there, go subscribe, like, and check out that video. Russell Gage was one of my picks. I think he's poised for a huge year. He had 72 catches last year with Julio there. The offense is inside in the dome. I think Matt Ryan can still be plenty effective. Pitts, I think, will just keep the defense more honest. I love the spot for Russell Gage in week 1 and in general this year.
I like it too. And on the other side of that, I will just ask you, if Devonta Smith is out, do we look to a Jalen Reagor, or do we look to, I know this is going to sound crazy, but sometimes you got to take shots. Like a Zach Ertz is a little more expensive than I thought he'd be. Dallas Goedert's 5,900. Reagor is 5,400. I only say that because I think we both know that this Atlanta defense, the reason I like their offense so much this year is because I hate their defense so much, right? And a lot of times, all the time, not all the time, most of the time, unless you're like the Jets, a bad defense is generally going to lead to more offensive shots and bigger opportunities. Even if you're not great, you're going to have to air the ball out a lot. So pass catchers are just going to get really a lot of opportunities. But the Atlanta Falcons, man, this is not a defense that you should be worried about at all. Are we looking at it? We can talk some stacks here. Are we looking at a potential game stack here, or are you mostly just picking one out of each side, maybe, or just going running them naked without anything coming back?
Definitely, if I do stack, it'll be on the Atlanta side because Matt Ryan's a statue. You can load him up with 2 of 3 of Ridley, Pitts, and Gage. I think that works really well. You got Rager on the run back, who I think is poised for, again, one of those receivers that Justin Jefferson in some ways did them all a disservice, but I also think he's creating a ton of value because everyone's like, oh, this guy, he's not like, not everyone is Justin Jefferson immediately. Jalen Rager, I think, is going to be very, very good if you have a quarterback. That's what I'm a little worried about in terms of I can't see myself stacking up with Hurts.
All right, let's talk about some stacks here. And let's not build anything even remotely close to cash. Let's just do like a volatile, high upside tournament lineup, right? Because that's a lot more fun. You with me?
It's the only way my mind works, my man.
All right.
I don't have time for cash. We're going, if you're not first, you're last.
All right, perfect. So obviously you're going to build a lot of lineups that might not look particularly great out of the gate, but I think we can still make something that looks really nice and has that ceiling. So what team do we want to start with? I'll let you pick it. We'll start with our basic build. Get the foundation of this lineup worked in first.
Oh boy, it's a lot of pressure. I'm trying to think of, I don't want to do the Cincinnati, Minnesota game. We did that in the last show, and I think there's other ways to go. I'm going to throw out two names. I'm going to let you pick.
Okay.
I think no one is talking about this because, again, they're not the most obvious choice. What about a Seattle stack? They're in the dome against Indy. I think that's kind of interesting. The other would be if we went down a little bit and saved some salary. What if we stacked up the Brownies and then you've got people like Edwards-Helaire or any of the skill position players for the Chiefs on the run back?
The Brown stack to me is most interesting.
Okay.
I don't think it's impossible that we see a shootout between the Colts and the Seahawks, but I do worry that if Quentin Nelson is still out, obviously I would expect Wentz to be out. I know they said the shorter term recovery, shorter side of that window, which is great. If that's the case in their offensive line, because that's an all-pro lineman you're talking about.
He might be more important. He is unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. That concerns me. And then Wentz, people like, I'm sure a lot of you will say, I know, yeah, but it's Wentz. He sucked last year. Yeah, but Frank Reich knows how to orchestrate an offense, and I think he can turn him into at least decent. I don't know if he can turn Jacob Eason into a decent quarterback right now.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to get from him in college. He bounced around a little bit, Georgia, Washington. I have no idea. All right, you want to go Browns, or you could go off the board and reject both of mine?
Let's go Browns. I actually don't hate that. And it's also nice to know that Kevin Stefanski earlier in the offseason talked about making Baker Mayfield do more this season, right? Let's not forget last year they were involved in like 3 straight monsoon games. Remember that?
Oh yeah. That was great because we identified that on our Sunday show.
Yes.
And we were buying really low on Baker because people were freaking out and there was nothing him and Jarvis Landry could do.
Yeah. We bought on him after those games. Right. Yeah. And hammered the under in those games as well. I remember that distinctly because all of them came in like 20 points below the actual total.
It was ridiculous.
It was nuts. So you throw that out. Throw out the fact that his first year with a new offensive coordinator was COVID summer. So a lot of that crap was all Zoom and they didn't get nearly as much of a rapport worked in. And you were without Odell Beckham. I don't care what you think of Odell Beckham this year, whether he's going to be a bust or not. I can tell you he's still better than anybody else that was out there last year in his stead. So there are reasons to look at this team and think, you know what, this could be a decent stack. And Ben, you don't really need to pay a premium at all for Baker Mayfield. Getting him at basically the same price as Cam Newton.
That's what I'm saying. It's not on people's minds. And that's what the key to tournaments. One, if it's a very obvious stack, that's okay. But again, then you got to do something crazy. Like immediately, if we stack up the Browns, we're already isolated to an extent. And you've got several pass catchers. The other thing I like, tight ends are relevant here. We could absolutely get Hooper in if we want to. How do you see pairing up Baker?
This is interesting. And one more, Diablo says they should do a Saint stack after all the hype. Well, I'm actually not opposed to it. I would stack Winston with Alvin Kamara. Then you just have to decide if you want like Marquez Callaway or Deontay Harris or Adam Troutman. That's kind of the problem. That's why I like Kamara so much. So yeah, I mean, it could work. And then you always have Aaron Jones or Davante Adams on the other side. But this is a little bit more fun with Baker. I'd say, all right. So first of all, we don't assume that this will be a popular stack, right? I don't. No,
it's not going to be.
No,
it's just not.
Your options for this are, and I don't want to completely forget about the tight end position either. Your options here are Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and Peoples-Jones, Higgins. You don't need to go there. Or an Austin Hooper, right? So,
or you could be really different. I don't really want to go to a back. I mean, Kareem Hunt certainly can catch the ball, but
yeah, he can. He definitely can. And I guess this build is kind of under the assumption that Kansas City scores and Cleveland is forced to throw, because if Cleveland's defense stands up, it's going to be a lot of Nick Chubb and a lot of Kareem Hunt on the ground, because the one way you want to control time of possession against Kansas City. So the hope here is that Kansas City does not allow them to do that.
Absolutely. But I think there are a lot of, we saw this in the, these teams met in the playoffs and whatnot. Yeah. There are ways this game could get going. And you're not paying a massive premium on a Baker, Odell, insert X run back stack. It's just not that crazy in terms of the price.
For sure. All right. So do we want to do a double stack?
That's fine. I mean, that's the most aggressive. I don't think you have to, for the record, but yeah, why don't we just go pretty generic Baker, Landry, Odell?
Okay. And if it's not a popular stack, you're not too worried about going with the two top pass catchers.
No, not at all.
All right, let's just try it. Let's see what we get here. Jarvis, Odell, and Baker. All right, we still have a decent amount of room to work with here. As your run back, we want Edwards-Helaire? Do we want Tyreek Hill? Do we want Kelsey? This is one of those spots where if someone said, yeah, I want it with Edwards-Helaire and Hill in the run back, I wouldn't even be shocked. Go ahead.
It's funny you say that. I'm building on my screen right now. I have Baker, Landry, Odell, Edwards-Helaire, and Travis Kelce.
And I don't hate it at all. Yeah, one of them's a running back, but we touched on this last week. There were a good amount of weeks where running back wide receiver combo or running back tight end combo on the same team won tournaments without their quarterback. And how does that happen? Concentrated offense. Minnesota Vikings, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook. And I think no matter how much we want to talk about guys like Mecole Hardman or Byron Pringle or Demarcus Robinson, none of that really matters, right? It's Tyreek Hill, it's Travis Kelce, and I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Clyde Edwards-Helaire this season. So I don't think it's crazy, Ben. Let's try.
Also have to I mean, again, this is very, very aggressive, but you have to think about it like this. If Baker, Landry, and Odell really get there to the point where you're talking tournament winning upside, Kansas City is either, and this is doubtful, getting smoked, or they're going to need to put up a lot of points, more points than one guy is going to take. So if the game really gets going to this extent, you're going to want more than one Chief in a lot of these scenarios.
What's the total on this game?
The total for the game itself?
Yeah, I'm going to head over.
It is 52.5.
That's a nice total. Right?
That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of points to go around here.
Okay. Yeah, if you head over to OddsShopper.com, totally free, by the way. It's an amazing site. You can one of my favorite things is just being able to search a player's name and pulling all their props up. But the biggest reason for this is in the name, OddsShopper. You can shop odds from all of the books available to you. Find the best odds. That's how you win more sustainably, more consistently. Find the best odds. Don't just settle for odds in one spot because it's what you're most comfortable with. You can track your bets. You can set up notifications when the line moves in the direction you like to get notified. And of course, there's some amazing offers on here for books that are all vying for everybody's business because, well, the boom is coming and all of these states are going to start opening it up a lot more. And sports betting, while already legal in a lot of spots, is going to become more mainstream. And I think that's where you really have to take advantage of it now while they're doing anything to get you guys in the door. But yeah, OddsShopper.com, definitely check that out. So Ben, it's 52. The one thing I wanted to see was where are we at in terms of, is that one? It's got to be one of the highest on the week. It's got to be.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It might be the highest actually.
Okay.
Yeah, 50. It is the highest. And we just had a good point from chat. That lineup implies little running volume for Edwards-Helaire. I actually totally agree with that. You're relying on touchdown variance, a little pass catching, and just the fact that Kansas City might score so many points that he can get there without volume, because I totally agree that it's not going to be a volume-centric CEH output.
Sure. Yeah, but those are sometimes the things that's
the risk you have to take. That's right. Why it could win. Like,
mind you, like if you're making a lineup like this and there's 40,000 other entries, that's not going to be something that's replicated a lot. And now that I look at the total, I actually wouldn't be surprised if this is one of the more popular game stacks, which gives me more reason to say this is a one way to do it differently.
I think a lot of the stacks will come the other way because people want, Mahomes in there and whatnot. But yeah, agree. Listen, there's a lot of ways to do it. We still have plenty of salary. You're working with almost 6,200 left for the final 4 spots, and one of them's a defense.
Yep. And I think a lot will come the other way, but at the same time, a Cleveland stack allows you to pair up like Hill and Kelsey on the back end of that without, because if you're playing Mahomes with that, you're paying a premium. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to plug a defense in just to get it over with and see what we have to work with. All right.
Who is that?
I don't know. Any good ones? There's got to be something that we could just be like, all right, this is good enough. I think Buffalo at 3,600 wouldn't be surprised to see some. Yeah. Would you say done? Yeah.
Sure.
A turnover prone Steelers team. I also think the Giants at home against Denver. Maybe Denver's offense looks good, or maybe if Drew Lock is in there, I would absolutely be willing to go Giants. But if it's Tyrod Taylor, I probably, or no, who's behind him now? Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, Bridgewater.
Tyrod Taylor's in Houston. Bridgewater's not as mistake prone, and I wouldn't be too happy about that. Let's go Buffalo. That gives us 7,000 per player remaining over that for a running back, a wide receiver, and the flex.
There's a lot we can do here. You can look to pay. So it's really, to me, the next question that you want to answer is, do we double save at running back with a guy like Mostert, or do we go more premium in the Aaron Jones, or do we splurge with, one of the premier guys? All
right. One thing that's kind of interesting to me, and I don't know if this could work, right? I have no idea if this is even possible, but I'm just thinking here. Is it doable to go with like a Kamara Davante Adams in the no, it's not. Okay. That's not going to work.
No.
Nope. It was worth a shot.
The double tight end, that still doesn't work. No.
Okay. That won't work. Aaron Jones makes sense. Anybody else here that we really like at running back? Because we can still go mid-range or even kind of higher tier or upper tier.
No, I mean, the things that I was looking at one of two combos. I don't think I wouldn't push back on Miles Sanders. And then you could go get Ridley if you wanted to.
Oh, I don't mind that at all.
And then you got 6,400 left for a flex, plenty of options.
These reports and just FUD, as we call it, Ben, coming out of Eagles camp that Boston Scott's going to be splitting touches with Sanders. I'll believe it when I really
on this
see
lifetime.
Why would you do that? I don't know. Maybe we're just way off, but Miles Sanders is far and away the most talented back on that roster, and it's not even close. Anyone worried about Kerryon Johnson? Please spare me. Spare me, Ben.
Last spot, we could put Mostert in there and call it a day.
See, I was wondering if hold on. If you go Sanders and then you said Ridley, Ridley could just crush at the spot.
Yeah, I love that little combo, Sanders and Ridley together.
Gives us 6,400. Yeah, that's interesting.
You got names.
All right. So if we put in Mostert, it would be Baker, Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, Odell Beckham, Jarvis, Calvin Ridley, Travis Kelce, Raheem Mostert, and Buffalo Bills defense.
And you could bump that. Not that I think you need to, but you have ample room You can bump that defense to a couple others if you wanted to. I would personally leave it. Yeah.
I mean, Jacksonville against Houston really might not be that bad, but I kind of like Buffalo there. I just think it could be a turnover prone spot for Ben in Buffalo on the road.
Yeah, you could I think with this team, there's plenty of leverage. If you wanted to go extreme, you could just fully leverage against the Burrow stacks and use Minnesota's defense. I don't think that's the craziest idea. I don't really want to do that because we've got a lot here to separate us.
Yeah, that's not the craziest idea either. There's a lot of different things you can do, really. If you didn't want to go with a secondary stack with Miles Sanders and Calvin Ridley, you can really do whatever the hell you want with a spot like that. Whatever you want.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, originally there, I actually had Gage instead of Ridley, and that allowed me. You could go get Kamara as your running back. You could get Dalvin Cook if you paid down a little from the Mostert spot. You can do a lot of things. You could even, if you moved Mostert to the running back, you could get Davante Adams in there. It's so many options.
You know what else you can do? You can go, and if you are someone that prefers to flex a wide receiver instead, I understand that. Mm-hmm. But you could go, this is kind of interesting. Are there any dirt cheap receivers? Because if you went Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones, you have 5,100 remaining. I just don't know if there's anyone down there that's viable enough to make this doable. Probably right, Elijah Moore is down there. That's your one guy.
So who did you throw out?
If you took out Sanders, Ridley, and Mostert and put in Kamara and Aaron Jones, you'd still have a wide receiver spot with 5,100 remaining. Now, it's not pretty. It's not pretty, but there are a few guys down there that might be viable absolute punts.
I have the answer. What you would do, what I would do 100% is I would go get Russell Gage at 5,700 and I would play Cincinnati's defense for the direct min. No doubt about it for me.
And just hope no defense pops off.
Yeah. And they get 7 or they just get lucky and there's just a wild mistake in the game. They're at home, close game. I don't think that's crazy at all.
I've been burned on flat min defenses, but I've also had them do huge things for me because you could pay for a top tier defense and maybe they only allow 10 points, but they have no turnovers. It's all about the defensive touchdown. That's what it comes down to, you know?
Oh, a ton. But people also, you have to keep in mind, some of the points that the min defense gets you is not from them. It's from the players that they unlock. Yes. Like when Gage scores 40 here, some of that is because of Cincinnati's defense. And that's partly their attraction. It's not that they're physically going to score enough points. It's that they unlock permutations you can't get.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think there's a lot of people who just have misconceptions of the way things went last year. And I wouldn't blame anybody for, not knowing that Russell Gage was, I think, top 20 in red zone targets last season.
No, I was stunned when I dug into the numbers. And it just shows there's a lot to go around and they play in the dome. That can't be overstated as it gets colder, in the second half of the year. Atlanta's always got home games, of course.
He was 16th in red zone targets last year, Ben. 16th in the league. And now Julio Jones is completely gone.
Yeah. And Pitts, listen, I think he's going to be very good, just like everyone else. But it's not like, there's no targets up for grabs. This guy's going to catch them all. Like, let's not get too crazy here. He'll be a nice guy, but you know what? They already had a pretty good tight end last year, and there was still plenty to go around.
So there's a lot of things to do here. And if there's one thing we've shown, whether you like these, high upside, high, volatility lineups or not, you can make some really good lineups really easily here with some high priced stacks that I think opens a lot up. Let's do this before we go. Let's try it with a Kansas City stack with Mahomes.
Okay. Let's do it.
Let's clear this. And hey, hit that thumbs up if you're enjoying these shows and you want to see more. Appreciate it a ton. It helps us out. And subscribe to the channel. We're going to be going super hard with NFL sooner than later, and live streams for all of these preseason slates. We got you covered, and some free content over on the site. We also have Matt Gajewski and Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, #1 ranked DFS player, They have actually made some projections for preseason, and they crushed in week 1. Absolutely crushed in week 1. So check them out if you haven't done so yet. All right, Ben, let's do this. Go Patrick Mahomes. This is going to be tough, no doubt, but we'll try it anyway.
We'll make it work.
It'll be doable. Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill. Let's just see what happens.
Okay. Oh, okay. Maybe I spoke too soon.
Well, who would you want outside that? Would you want to go Hardman instead and just see what we can do?
The problem I have with that, with the Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, and half point PPR is you're paying like $27,000. You need basically to capture all the touchdowns at that point.
Right.
No bonuses, no full point PPR. It's hard to pad the stats without finding the end zone.
You could go with like a Byron Pringle.
Or you could just go Mahomes, Tyreek. You want to do a 3-1 again?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Or we don't have to, but the only thing is
with Mahomes, I think you probably should have more than one pass catcher because he's almost $9,000.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I didn't know how to articulate it, but yeah, try Kelsey and Hardman. By the way, I think that this will be very popular, but let's just try it.
Okay, let's do it.
So Mahomes, Kelsey, and Mecole Hardman gives us 62 remaining. I'm just plugging the Bills back in there because who cares, right?
Yeah, we can work on that at the end.
Right. Plug the Bills now. You get 67.40 remaining. I'm going to throw Raheem Mostert in here. I think he's a very good price. And now you have almost 7K remaining per player. We have 4 left. Who do you want next?
I mean, do you want to? I don't think you need to do the classic run back with Chubb, but I'm not opposed to it either. I mean, who do you want bringing back from the Cleveland side?
Yeah, so we go. I don't know how comfortable I am with a running back doing that because I feel like if Patrick Mahomes and 2 pass catchers go off, it's probably going to be because Cleveland wasn't in a position to run the ball down their throats.
Certainly the problem with Chubb is that if he has a really good game outside of long runs, they're going to crush time of possession. And if they crush time of possession,
it hurts Mahomes.
It's going to hard to get a 3-man Chiefs stack there.
Right. I mean,
what about Kareem Hunt?
You could.
Or is that just too thin?
Yeah, if you look at his targets last year, it's not that he wasn't good, right? Because he actually finished, I think he finished the top 10 at the position, but there were also 4 games that Hunt missed or that Chubb missed, but he had 51 targets in 16 games. It wasn't that much.
I'd rather just pick either Odell or Landry, to be honest.
Let's just throw Odell in there.
Okay.
All right. So we'll throw Odell in, and then you get 7,033 remaining per three more players. I put Mostert in there too. I just wanted to see if that would open anything up. You can go with a high price running back here. Easy.
Oh, no doubt. I was just looking at, you could go Dalvin Cook and Jamar Chase if you wanted to.
Okay. I kind of like that. Chase is cheap.
He really is. And
He's
you're
really
getting
cheap. 6,200 for a flex.
62 for a flex. It's funny. Isn't it funny when you build, you always land on a certain, like no matter what build you do,
A tier that you just hate.
it's just like, why couldn't it just not be 62? That's where we were in the last lineup too.
Yeah, it's crap. The only thing is and we can't go back. We have Dalvin Cook. I'm not going down to Cincinnati now and just full punting the position at defense. Although Laz gets fit would suggest we do that and he'd win a lot of money with it.
That man is smarter than both of us combined with his defense takes. Hope all is well, Laz. Oh man, I mean, I don't think this is crazy. Again, would I play this in a normal tournament? No. I don't think it's impossible to just use Kareem Hunt there.
It's actually not.
It's not like if you want to just go for it and you say the game's going to be 80 points scored, that's probably a 1% outcome. but you're fully leveraging. I don't think that's the craziest move.
It's really not. I mean, it's a double stack Kansas City with Odell and Kareem Hunt coming back in a game with a 52.5 total.
Yeah, and then you've got a mini stack of Dalvin Cook and Jamar Chase, probably my two favorite weapons from that game. And then you've got the Bills defense. And Mostert as a one-off, who you like.
I like it. I don't think it's crazy at all.
Yeah. I mean, again, you got to build to what you're entered in. Would I play that in single entry? Obviously not. Would I play it in a top heavy millie where half the money goes to first? Yeah, I probably would.
So ultimately, when you're looking at everything that we've done in these, we haven't even built some of what are going to be the most popular. Like Cincinnati is going to be popular, especially on DraftKings. Really popular. I think Minnesota's always just a good team to target because, again, the offense is so concentrated. I don't want to build another lineup right now, but are there any other teams that you look at as just straight concentrated offenses that always make for good stacks?
I mean, I think you just hit on a couple of the main ones because their QB is surrounded by good weapons and he's very affordable. You've also got, there is Kyler Murray, who's just different because he has upside with a non-Lamar slate. He can do something on the slate that nobody else can really. And that's always interesting. You can single stack him with Hopkins. He's got some other new weapons there. But Minnesota and Cincinnati, I think, will be two of the most popular stacks.
All right. So let's do it. We'll close this out right now. Ben, I think you have places to be. But before we do, Hall of Fame segment. I haven't done this in a while because I haven't been on the channel. But if you use the Awesemo avatar and you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, not only do you win a free month, $100 value, Awesemo Plus, everything on the site, including all of our tools built and used by the #1 ranked DFS player who I'm about to show you right now, just had a monster payday. But also, we'll throw you up here and do all of the bragging for you. All you have to do is tweet at Awesemo HOF. That's Awesemo Hall of Fame on Twitter. Tag me and Ben in that as well. But also, you got to go to awesemo.com/avatar, download the avatar. So here it is, JS Romero, 150 and 100. Big stuff, second and third place. Congratulations, man. And here's where it starts getting huge, Ben. Our boy Awesome, $116,000. The MMA, $750K, 265 special. Boom. That's the guy that makes our tools and just wins tons of money all the time. The next one is Peter Hanley, who seemingly never loses. Another.
He got time. He has our time machine package, which
it's
apparently
so crazy.
I don't know what goes on, but yes.
$67,000 for Peter Hanley playing NASCAR this time. It's just every sport for this guy. It's amazing. Congrats, Peter. He doesn't need a free month, but he keeps doing it. Our boy Rim Pat, $100K in MLB the other day. Huge. The big wins just keep coming. I think we got one here from Ship My Money as well. But first, 8-game, 150 said I finished second in the wiffle ball on FanDuel. Thanks, Awesemo. Yeah, this can be, by the way, 10-cent entry, 25-cent dollar entry. As long as you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, you get your free month at Awesemo. And then our boy Ship My Money, $10,000 in the NFL Showdown preseason Hall of Fame game. Pretty exciting, Ben, because they came from all different sports. Just huge wins across the board.
No doubt about it. And yeah, listen, that's the tools. There's so much going on, even like preseason. I don't have time to be breaking down these teams. That's why I lean on our tools. I lean on Matt and Alex for that. And we've got you covered for every sport. So with so much going on, there's no better time. And listen, if you're going to play in there, you might as well tweet at us and get some free stuff if you hit. That's just a little extra money on top of everything else. So good luck out there. We want to see more of those screenshots.
We'll see you back here soon with a whole lot more DFS content on the channel. Be sure to check out all of the MLB content today and everything else we got on the channel. And check out the Fantasy Football channel and the Odds channel right here on the Awesemo Network. That sounds cool. Check us. We'll see you back here next time on the Awesemo DFS show. Peace.